Alright friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment in what we're calling our 300 series, where we have our small army here of 268 troops, and at the request of some subscribers who were curious what the upper bounds were for our little army here full of big characters taking on, right? So in this battle here, we're fighting some 1,500, might be a little bit more than that. It looks like it's a combination of Northern Empire and Sturgia here that have sort of trapped us in this valley. I actually chose this valley because it's somewhat of a narrow battlefield, and on some level it's kind of sort of quasi Thermopylae-ish, right? The Battle of Thermopylae was where the 300 Greeks and, a side note of course, several hundred other troops defended a huge army of Persians that might have been 200,000 strong. Now of course they did so because it was a narrow area. Just show you some of my units here, right? These are all some of my elite guys within my family. All these guys are level 35 plus. Some of them are level 50. But in the Battle of Thermopylae, of course, part of the reason the Greeks were able to win is because it's a narrow battlefield. So you can see the rest of my army here. And we're sort of simulating that here. And this battlefield, it's going to be a relatively narrow battlefield. I'm pretty sure it could be a battlefield I'm not familiar with. Make sure all these, I want as many of them to be in the battle as possible. Okay, perfect. So we're outnumbered about almost 6 to 1 here. But I'm hoping in this narrow valley, with normal player damage, hoping in this narrow valley that we can effectively limit some of the enemy's overwhelming advantage in numbers. I mean, you can't completely. I'll have to do a bridge battle at some time. But this will be an entertaining challenge. I plan on using, of course, my archers on this hill. I've done a few episodes with this very battlefield, and in fact with this same spot. If you happen to generate with this spot here, where the rocks are kind of set up and the road winds through like that, it's a really good spot for running basically a combination of concentration attacks, right, where you get all your units attacking the guys that come over, but also it's a bit of a variation of the peekaboo ridge, a tactic I developed where you're attacking the enemy as they come over a sharp ridge. They have to come over the ridge, and as soon as they come over the ridge, they get shot full of arrows, a javelin in their spleen, and infantry right in their face. And this tactic, in a few of the episodes I've had, I don't want to fall off this cliff. Damn, I'm going to drag cavalry over this cliff too. If you've ever seen that before, it literally is like those nature videos where all the wildebeest just pummel off the cliff and get devoured by crocodiles. Anyways, I digress here. This battlefield is outstanding though for stopping enemies. Where was it? Oh yeah, the peekaboo ridge. If you can put infantry and or cavalry right at the edge of this ridge here, one of the biggest advantages of this tactic is no archers from the other side can really set up on that ridge, right? The enemy wants to. It wants to get archers up there to shoot you, but if your guys are right there, it really can't do so. And even if it does send even if it does send archers up here, well, we'll just attack them. So the enemy's playing very passive here. I was actually worried about this in my first battle. It might just be that they're moving forces up. But the AI has been doing sort of some curious things lately, and it'll be interesting to see if one of these battles, outnumbering us 6 to 1, they don't attack. That's a little overlay here of what we're doing with our strategy. I've got the 3rd Cavalry is in a nice little square there. That sort of acts as a combination of bait ball, and it's also choking up the road there. I want less of their troops to be able to reach our archers. Our archers are on that ridge. The infantry's to their left, to their left, and the 6th and 8th Corps are in the center of the screen. So I've got my cav up here as a shield wall, just trying to limit how much of their heavy cav can charge through. I'm not that worried about their heavy cavalry unless it comes in conjunction with the rest of their troops. If they want to come in piecemeal, sort of cav first and infantry second, then we are going to win this battle, or at least we have a very good chance of winning this battle. I've got my cons guards here, right? We've got my army, of course, is packed with good troops. Early on in a battle like this, so the enemy's troops will be very high level too. They've got plenty of Imperial cataphracts and heavy lancers and stuff like that, tier 5 troops of their own. Where we'll really have the advantage is later in this fight, right? After we kill their first vanguard, then we'll definitely have the advantage in strength of unit power, though obviously we'll still be heavily outnumbered. trying to handle a few of these skirmishers that are kind of in here. I keep an eye on the rest of the field while I'm doing this. But sometimes it's also bad to get distracted like that. Yeah, see, I don't see any infantry at all. So no, they're way out there on the horizon. So this is a bad strategy. Actually, it's the same strategy that the English pursued at the, I want to say, the Battle of Stirling. You know, the actual Battle of Stirling obviously is very different than the Battle of Stirling Bridge, which is the historical name of the real battle. But the enemy in this case is actually acting like the dipshit English did in the movie Braveheart, where they were so confident, they shot a few volleys into the Scots, and they said, hey, let's just send the heavy horse, kill them all. And of course, you know, the pikemen of the Scots completely annihilated the horse. That commander made two tactical mistakes, or two big mistakes in one decision. First, he had hubris. He's just assuming they're going to win no matter what. And second, he decided to attack and essentially allow the enemy to fight his units in detail, right? By sending the cav first, they got slaughtered, most of them were killed. Then he sent his infantry. He should have been attacking with 2 or 3 units, right? But of course, very rarely in flying horse, very rarely in battles, especially in movies, do commanders actually act in a way that seems intelligent. They do stuff that is just astonishingly stupid on a regular basis. And of course, as a war historian and someone who loves battlefield tactics, it's very aggravating to watch these Sunday morning fucking tacticians / directors just decide, hey, no, I'm going to have all these guys do this and all these guys do that. Just incredibly stupid shit where it's like, no, they would never do that. That's really stupid. But I guess ultimately the idea is most of the audience is too ignorant to the whole thing to understand this. So I'll try not to ramble too much.
The enemy remains fairly defensive here, and we're sort of forced to remain defensive as well. If they don't attack us super aggressively here, we're gonna wait it out. In the real battle of Thermopylae, the 300, undoubtedly there was some patience going on, right? Because they were also they were exhibiting a defensive strategy as well. In this situation, not killed another one of my guys. And by the way, you know, I try not to brag too much about my skill in the game, my command in the game, but there's one element of my game where I'm at the top of the field. There's nobody better, at least that I've ever seen, at killing his own troops. With my javelin errant throws, I probably kill, you know, 5 or 6 troops every single battle. But such is life with the friendly fire feature. Thank goodness my own troops can't shoot me, because of course almost every battle I'd be shot to death. Who knows what would happen if there was friendly fire? The game would play out very differently. So we continue to sort of skirmish here with their heavy cav waves. It's of course very suboptimal strategy, but if the enemy wants to pursue that strategy, we're going to reload on javelins here and allow them basically to be dipshits. If this was a battle where, you know, we outnumbered them or even had close to similar numbers, I'm having a hard time picking these javelins up. If we were even close to their numbers, or it was a battle we would win most of the time, I would just come up with an offensive strategy here so that anybody watching didn't just X out and say, fuck this. But given the difficulty of this strategy, you know, the strategic situation, outnumbered 6-1, it makes sense here to be a little bit defensive.
Being kind of brutally honest about stuff. As a side story again here, since the enemy's just going to sit there, it's really strange. They're sending in like 5 horse archers at a time, and these insolent fucks won't attack. Come and attack, you fucks. All right, another quick 30-second story time. When I was first dating my wife, you know, our first couple 3 years, I had a policy of just brutal honesty. You know, I just figured it was easier to be in a relationship and be completely forward with somebody. Here they come. They're going to take a little bit though, so I can get this on. I had poor results in relationships where I wasn't up front, where communication wasn't poor, and I decided, you know what, I'm just going to be totally honest from the get-go. I'm going to tell them I'm going to be totally honest, and in the end, it's worked beautifully for our relationship. But I didn't really know the art of a white lie. For one of my birthdays, she made this spectacular steak with mushrooms and, you know, cooked in red wine and potatoes from the garden. It was just like one of the most incredible meals I had ever had. And I remember very clearly, we still laugh about it to this day, I told her at the end of it, you know, licking my lips, babe, that was the second best steak I had ever had in my life. And that was because a year before, we had gone to a world-class, world-renowned, award-winning chef off the Oregon coast at a place called the Whale Cove Inn and eaten the best steak we ever had in our life. So it seemed like kind of this backhanded compliment, but in reality, it's just brutally honest, right? Her steak wasn't better than this world-renowned steak artist, but it's an example of where honesty is sometimes it's better to tell a white lie. What more flying horses? All right, so the enemy infantry's coming in. Little romantic side stories aside. Now we're getting on with the real combat. Again, I'm pulling the 6th and 8th Corps, very similar strategy, over towards me, and we're holding that line with that first infantry. I don't even want them attacking. I just want those guys holding the line. That way we can come in the flanks here and just clean up. The archers did a number on the enemy as they came in. In fact, I barely see any enemies here. It seems like they got a pocket over on this far left flank. But the enemy vanguard just kind of vaporized there. You know, they may have been shot a lot worse than I thought on the way in, right? It's a variation of the Peekaboo Ridge. On the approach, they're getting assailed by archers. But that was surprisingly easy. They just sort of evaporated there. Again, we're going to continue to use this little side ridge. I won't bore you anymore in this battle with little romantic stories. Other than the point of, like I said, if I fight one of these battles and I lose, you know, I'll try to let you know, hey, this was the 4th showing or the third time I replayed the battle, just to give you guys like a good idea of what it's all about. If I get dropped from my horse in the first 10 minutes, you know, it's not like we failed in the attempt. It was just a situation where I wasn't careful enough as the general. And again, they're being defensive. I imagine there's probably only hardy subscribers or a handful of very interested people watching at this point. But we'll do our best to both entertain you and defeat this very large force. I could just cut through a bunch of their archers. If you want to do what I'm doing right now, you got to make sure that you have good armor. You have to make sure you have good timing with your pole arm, of course. And you want to weave. As you're moving through here, never move in a straight line. Right? The AI will dial you up with their arrows. And if you don't move, in other words, if you just accelerate your horse forward, what'll happen is their archers will draw a bead on you. Eventually, they will get you in their sights, and you will die quickly. So if you're going to do what I'm doing, kind of flying in here reckless, you see how I'm kind of weaving back and forth? You're still going to get shot sometimes just by the sheer number of shots they're taking, but you can behead a few guys too. But you want to kind of weave back and forth. It's like this little dance you'll have to learn if you've never done that before. Compelled the enemy to bring in this cav wave. I still don't see the infantry yet. I see little guys trickling in. They're being a little smarter with their archers. They're just sort of sparring at range. Given how many archers they have compared to us, that's actually pretty smart. Right? They don't need to get too close with their archers before they fire. I would just fire 10,000 arrows at us and hope to weaken us. All right, that looks like their vanguard. So I'm going to bring our guys back. Right, this is a little bit of kiting. I bring the infantry back. They were up there initially in case archers came over the ridge so I could attack them. Now we're going to bring the 6th and 8th Corps around the corner. And in this battle, at this stage, I think we're going to have to attack with archers. You know, there's no rules to a battle like this. This is, look at how many there are. That's a huge amount of infantry still. We are going to surround them. So that I pulled the 1st, 6th, and 8th kind of to this side, sort of sucked the enemy in. And then as they charged, I attacked with both archer corps, right? So it's a quasi-kill box. It's a little bit of a scrum, but there's effectively 6 units now attacking this infantry vanguard. Actually, it's not even a vanguard anymore. This infantry wedge. I didn't see how many it was, but it was a lot. That was like 50% or 100% more than all of the troops we have left on the field. 6th and 8th Corps still taking care of business. I still see plenty of kills. Every once in a while I'm swinging my axe, I glance up there. I see lots of kills by some of our elite companions. And that's paramount to these battles, right? I have to have those elite guys mowing through troops, otherwise we're just not going to be able to take down a huge force. But another successful exchange there. We suffered some losses there, but honestly I think that was less than the initial wave. And take a look at these archers. The enemy's morale's got to be very poor at this stage. In some of these bigger battles, I actually have a better chance of making the enemy rout than killing all their troops. Okay, they're either retreating or pulling back, so we're going to get aggressive in here. When archers are running, by the way, kill everything. Kill them all, right? They're totally vulnerable. Maybe one or two will kind of swing his little wimpy-ass sword at you. They'll block a few shots, but these guys are absolute fodder if you have a horse and some good weapon skill, right? They're all taking 30 damage from this horse, whatever horse this is I grabbed. They're taking serious damage, but of course we're also every 3 seconds we're beheading some guy too, right? This is a devastating response. If you can, have your cav come with you. I don't have a lot of cav at this stage though, so it's basically a one-man army here. Okay, so they're sitting back again. I think at this stage there's some peasants in here. It's probably time for us to get aggressive. That's a huge body of troops though still. Holy fuck. One more little side riff about effectively how you can win battles. There's a lot of animosity in our country from the Civil War, right? A lot of people in the South are very angry about how the Northern generals sort of completed the last phase of the war. If you don't know what they did, they basically went through Georgia, they went through other parts of the South and just destroyed everything in sight. They killed all the animals, they burned all the cottages, they took everything they could for their army, they stole it. They pushed all the peasants in many cases, not the peasants, they pushed all these Americans out of their homes, created a huge amount of animosity. Well, the purpose of that was not to destroy those people's resources so much. The purpose was to prevent the army from, and here we go with the peekaboo ridge approach, by the way. We're letting the enemy come over this ridge, and then once they do in a sufficient numbers, we will combined attack, right? These small numbers here, I'm just going to have these guys hold a shield wall while I pick them off. The point is, though, is that the Union Army actually had a strategy. It was called the strategy of exhaustion. And the reason is because General Sherman, General Ulysses S. Grant, they didn't want to have to kill millions of Southerners to make the battle officially over. They decided what they could do is they could deny the soldiers of the Confederate Army resources, and if they don't have guns, if they don't have boots, food, clothes, ammunition, wagons, they can no longer fight. Instead of the war of attrition, where you try to kill your enemy, as we go in with a combined attack here, I hope you don't mind sort of the multi-narration. I think at this stage, this battle is won. Unless something disastrous happens, they're trying to take on our 8th Corps with the 1st Infantry line right on them, head on. This is not going to be a pretty result for the enemy. I had to kick that guy to death. I haven't had a kick kill in a long time. Love it when you get a kick kill. Anyways, the North had this strategy, this grand strategy idea that, hey, instead of killing all these Americans, which, by the way, would have longer lasting repercussions, I think, than what they actually did, let's just ravage the land. Let's just make it so they don't have any pigs, they can't make ammunition, they can't make wagons, they can't make clothes, and eventually their army will be running around naked with no food and no ammunition and realize that the battle's over. Well, to this day in our country, unfortunately, there's a lot of animosity about this because it's been misinterpreted or misunderstood by the South, by people. Of course, this is 150 years since the Civil War. These guys are I don't think they're, at this stage, I think they're routing, but they may just be reforming. If they are reforming, that's fine. We'll have another phase. It lets me finish this little side riff. To this day, though, there's a lot of Southerners who, to their grandson and great-grandson, they told the story about how awful it was that especially Sherman, General Sherman he was hated in the South, even though he was kind of a Southerner himself. Sherman went through, especially Georgia, and he publicly said, I'm gonna make Georgia howl. He had a lot of comments that Southerners later view, when you combine with his actions, as this just sort of nasty, underhanded, immoral way to fight war, where you just attack peasants and kill their kill their horses and stuff like that. But again, unfortunately, the North actually had sort of, I guess what's the best way to say it? They had intentions of not having to kill all these poor Southern boys. Of course, most of the Southern army was a bunch of peasants who were made to fight. And the North really didn't want to have all these Americans killed. It's a little bit like Japan, where instead of killing every single last Japanese person down to the last man, I think Truman it was who made the decision, let's use this horrible weapon. And hopefully instead of 1 million Japanese dying and maybe another 250,000 Americans, hopefully the war will just be over. The Japanese will realize the futility of it. I think on a similar line, Ulysses S. Grant, Abraham Lincoln, the leaders of the War Council decided that, hey, it's better if we just exhaust the South and make it so they can't actually fight the war, and then we won't have to kill all their people. Again, it's a sad case because it's led to decades, if not maybe someday centuries, of division and animosity in our country, where Southerners to this day sort of have an anti-government, certainly anti-North view of their life, of their world. Right. Anyways, hopefully some people don't mind these little side riffs. I'm a huge fan of history. I like understanding history because it gives you a better perspective on how we got to where we are today. Of course, I love war history just as much, or if not more, than all the rest of history. So I will go into these side riffs from time to time. If you hate them, I guess I would just say, well, I don't know. Maybe you won't watch my channel, which is that's just fine. Luckily, there's channels out there for pretty much everybody. Anyways, so this is another battle where we were able to fight, 1,600 enemies, mow through them, and in this case, they are going to hate us because we did kill all their peasants. In fact, here I am at the end, just savagely mowing all their guys down. All right, these guys in real life would think I was an absolutely disgraceful barbarian, a hateful, vengeful, vindictive fuck. Their great-great-grandchildren would hate me, and for good reason. But fortunately, they're pixels with no transformation, with no memories, and no future vengeance of people angry at how they were persecuted. So thanks again for watching. We'll do a few more of these battles. We'll push the upper bounds of our 8th Corps, and we'll see how it goes. I'll see you friends next time.